Okay, so here we are with Jessica Hansen, who's the owner of Take Note Studio. And she was gracious enough to be open to sharing a few words about her experience working with us. And as I just said before I turned the camera on, being able to hear the experience in the business owner's own words and not from the marketer and the marketing agency. So I love to start, Jessica, if you could just give a quick introduction to your business, who you are, how long you've been in business, anything you might want to share to give some context around you and what you're up to.
Sure. Yeah. So I direct Take Note Studio, which is a children's music studio. So we serve mostly children. We do have a few adults, but it's mostly infants, even all the way through high school. So we offer kinder music, which are group music classes for ages 0 to 7. And during the first 3 years, they do come to class with their families. And so it's a really wonderful community of families learning together in a communal social environment. And then once they are done with the kinder music program, they can move into either our group or private lesson program. And we really just focus on the main instruments of piano and guitar and voice and ukulele. And we offer those instruments all the way through high school. We have now 3 locations. Our main location is where I started the studio in 2006 in a small Wisconsin town, a little south of Green Bay, Wisconsin. And it's a really is a pretty small town of about 35,000 people. And then a few years after I opened that location, we opened another one about 30 minutes south of us. And then just this year, we opened a third location about 30 minutes north of us. So we've grown to about 450 students that we serve, half of them being kinder music students and half of them being lesson students. So
Wonderful. Wonderful. I didn't know you were in business since 2006.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
That's awesome. What a long runway. That's
yeah.
incredible.
It's really been a wonderful journey, a challenging one, especially certainly during the COVID years.
Yeah.
But yeah, really excited to be close to 20 years in business. So
Yeah. That's going to be a huge milestone. That's going to be a huge
yeah.
milestone. So we got reconnected. Actually, when I think about it, back when we did the strategy session together, back in December, I believe we held that. And I love to go back to that point when when you had reached out and before we got into the automation and lead drive and all of that, what were some of the challenges, frustrations, or maybe just things that you were looking to get better and improve at in your marketing?
So I have been doing the majority of our marketing over the years. Recently, in the last few years, I've dabbled a little bit with agencies and also just some in-house help with some staff that we have on staff in-house. And really have struggled with finding the right fit for what our needs are in our studio, and have since then or most recently done most of the marketing on my own, and self-taught a bit in advertising and even some graphic design and copy and things like that. And then also the lead follow-up and really feeling like it's such an important work that is, and it's the really key to growth is advertising and marketing and sales, and struggling a little bit with letting that go, and finding the right person to take on some of those responsibilities, but also coming to the realization that it takes up a lot of my time, and really knowing that I need to release parts of that at least. And so that's why I was excited to find you in the work that you're doing with.
Yeah, absolutely. I can remember from our early conversation when you were talking about, I remember two things. I remember your conversion percentage was high. Like if compared to like an industry average, the amount of leads that you were converting was high. And then when you went into your process, you were doing it well, which is why the conversion rate was high. But I remember thinking like, even despite all of these steps that you're taking to work the leads, you're still doing quite really good, which was a good sign. And that's
Yeah.
always a sign of a client that we want to work with when they're already selling without even having everything really in place. It's
Mhm.
like, oh, I wonder what it looked like if we just tweaked a couple of these things. And I remember
Yeah.
feeling like that back then during our first conversation.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, would you be able to outline a little bit of what we implemented together over the past month and a half or so? From your perspective, and potentially that could look at like also a comparison from how you were doing it before, and then now with the system set up, what does your workflow look like now?
So I was doing a lot of the lead follow-up work in the studio, actually probably all of it, and really, wanting that process to be very personalized for people, so they felt like there was a real person behind the
Hmm.
text or the email, that they could get their specific questions answered. I wanted that to feel natural and not super salesy. And so I really did take the lead in that whole process, but I know enough as a customer myself of other places that it really does take, multiple times of reaching out to people for them to respond, to be interested. I mean, there's so much research on that, on how many taps it takes for people to
Yeah.
actually pay attention and even convert. So um, I was realizing how time consuming this process is, even though I did put a system in place for myself to be consistent and to, continue the follow up. It was a daily and time intensive process that I knew I wouldn't be able to sustain in the long run. So having you put in place a systemized process that still feels very personal, that is not something I mean, I said to my husband the very first time a lead got a text that wasn't from me, like doing it, I was so excited. I just
Mhm.
said, look what just happened. These people have been reached out to. I'm having dinner with my family. I'm not, trying to text them right now. They got a text though. They're being reached out to. There's a whole pipeline. There's a, very visual system of where now what happens next to this lead. And they're, getting emails from us automatically, and just such a relief of being able to know I don't have to be constantly checking all the time that
Yeah.
these things are happening automatically. And yet it still does feel personal. There's ways that we can still personalize that process. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And equally to you, even being in the business, when we were starting to send the automated texts and I see that a text went out and then somebody responded and they said they want to do a class on Saturday at noon or whatever they say,
yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, that's awesome. You know what I mean? Like they think because,
Right.
text is one of those things where when you get an email, you immediately almost just assume it's automated sometimes, unless it's really, really personalized. But with text, we're introducing ourselves, we're saying their first name, and like on purpose, we're delaying the text a couple of minutes so it doesn't feel like fill out the form and ding. Just some of
Right.
these little nuances. And
Yes.
it all goes back to that Harvard study review of when you can reach out to a lead within 5 minutes, the amount
Yep.
of times that you are more likely to have a conversation and close them is so much higher. So yeah, that's fabulous. And it's always cool when you don't have to feel like if you get see a lead come in, you have to like almost rush to the side to call them like a lot of people do without
Yeah.
having automations in place.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Such relief. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And also, one thing I'm excited about with your brand is the ability where you can bring in more leads too.
Mhm.
And because you have the time to be able to have the conversations with all of them because you're not doing that manual
Right.
process on the front end as well.
Right.
Um, when it comes to the lead management as well, looking at some of the other things we have set up, such as the pipeline and the constant contact integration and other things, is there any other features that you're excited about that potentially you had before, or now it's automated, or maybe it's anything brand new, anything that stands out to you from a software perspective that you're excited to use?
I really do appreciate the app. I like getting notifications when leads come through or when there's a conversation happening through text, so that if I want to or need to, I can just do it right from my phone, and it's quite convenient that way. And it alerts me if things are happening. So I appreciate that feature. I also love that we can set due dates and write notes, and there's plenty of input that I can add to each lead that will help me remember what have I done with these people? What have they done? So there's no question on where we are in the process. So yeah, all of those features have been great.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. All right. And last question I have is, as I was sharing with you before, our business is so referral based because there's so many marketing companies that do similar things, and it's really working with people that you can trust or that you know have done it for somebody else in a similar industry, et cetera. So my last question is like, what would you say to somebody who's considering working with us at Nips Media, myself, et cetera? Any hesitations that potentially you had in the beginning that now you feel differently about, or any words that you would share with somebody who's on the edge?
Well, I mean, I came to trust you due to some recommendations of other people that you're working with as well, who are quite, I mean, very successful in the industry of music school owners and trust you themselves. So that was helpful for me to know that you have experience working in the kind of industry that I am in and you understand who we are. I do appreciate that it's a, you know, I can talk to you directly. You're very responsive. You're easy to get a hold of. All of those things were really important to me. I feel like you know not only my industry, but you know my needs, and we just have very easy communication, both through email or Slack or whatever it is. I don't feel lost in the shuffle, and that's been a really good experience too. Yeah,
Awesome. Awesome.
yeah.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. And we're so excited for a long-term relationship with this project and all of the additions and features and things that we're going to come up with to make your life easier, but also more importantly, close more students
Yeah.
in Kindermusik and lessons and music and all of the importance that comes with that. So thank you, Jessica, for taking the time to do this. It's so much appreciated, and
No
I really
problem.
appreciate the time.
Yeah, no problem. You have a good afternoon and weekend.
Thank you very much.
All right, take care.
Bye.